Michael?
No, not so much anymore. I kind of got a little burnt out on it, to be honest with you.
I'm only asking because one of my neighbors posted a picture on Facebook yesterday of someone snowboarding down Superior Street. I couldn't tell who it was. At first I thought it was my son, but it was not.
When was that? Like
The last time there was one of those massive snowstorms here, and I might have been before you moved to Salem.
Yeah.
And
I haven't seen much snow here since I've been here, but
well, it could be coming soon.
Right.
All right, let's call the meeting to order. Today is February 10th, 2021. It's 9:36 a.m. and this is the Salem Public Art Commission meeting. Let's start with introductions. I'm Chris Darcy, Chair of the Commission.
Eileen Cotter-Howe, Commissioner.
Michael Hernandez, Commissioner.
Kelly James, Commissioner.
Spencer Emmerich, Commissioner.
And Heather Dimke with Public Works.
And Heather, did we receive any public comment?
No public comment.
Okay, then I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I move we approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. And so there are no opposed. Let's move into our discussion items. Start with the police station and the lighting for Equitas.
Okay, yeah, I think I shared with everybody that the lighting is now up and running. The sculptures aglow. Actually, that day that we did get snow here in Salem, it was beautiful. I popped down. So it appears to still be working. It's lit throughout the day and all night, so it's constantly on. I did attend with police staff, facilities staff, and Ignition Arts, a brief walkthrough of the piece back on, it was after our last meeting, I think the 15th of January. So that's while Ignition Arts was on site doing his repairs. It was a pretty brief overview. Basically, you know, the sculpture, there's the LED lights in the panels, and he showed us how you can pop those off and on pretty quickly if you need to access the lights. And then there's a little sushi, it's called handheld DMX decoder that holds the software that tells the piece to cycle through those, I think it was 8 different colors. Right, so he showed us that piece. He was going to leave an extra one, and I should confirm that he did do that. And then we walked inside the police station, and he showed us where that plugs in. So again, it was really, I felt really glad that police was there, facilities who will help do any maintenance. They were all there. Everybody looked at the piece, looked at where it plugged in. And so it seemed to go pretty smooth, and I feel pretty good about it and glad to see that it's lit finally.
Great. So question, Heather, with that, will Wendy Brokaw at CC Media finish her piece? She interviewed me and she interviewed Blessing Hancock, and she was going to complete her thing, and then that would be available for us to share. And
yes, she had been checking in regularly to see if it was lit. She'd wanted to get some additional photos. So I let her know same day that I let you guys know that it was functioning. It sounded like she ran down right away. She was really excited to see it up and running. And I checked in with her again yesterday because I had not heard. It sounds like she just finally wrapped up her interviews, finished it off, polished it off, and sent that to her editor. And so it sounds like within the next day or two, I think she's going to reach back out to us as soon as it's shared. So
great.
Shortly.
Great.
I have a question. Did we determine what the issue was with the lighting? Was that some wiring issue on the construction end, or was it an issue within the sculpture itself?
I don't know details. It sounds like it was a waterproof issue, basically with the LED lights and how they were plugged in. So that's from Ignition Arts, the guy that was here. His waterproof connections were not completely waterproof, apparently, when they installed back on December 10th. So it took him several days. It was a couple days longer than he'd anticipated while he was here, but he got it all wrapped up. So.
Okay.
Great. I'm still interested in a walkthrough of the police station if that's ever a possibility.
Yeah.
And I am curious about the display of some of their historical memorabilia played out. Just curious.
I think that would be awesome. The lobby is in fact still closed, and I should have known that last time during our meeting. So it's not presently open to the public. They do have people going in and out. I guess they're using, rightly so, their new space for meetings and such. But I did get to peek in there when we walked inside, and I could see some of the displays, some of those badges and things that DC Belshaw had shared with us. I asked Angie over there who might have helped with that, and she didn't know. So I need to, I'm curious, as I know you all are as well. So I'm going to ask around, continue to find out if I can get more information on that, as well as the interpretive pieces that they talked about doing outside, because I still haven't heard any more on that. But I think it would be great. Again, it's closed right now, so hopefully things are going to start to improve. I'm sure that they probably don't want to walk through with groups of folks just yet.
Yeah.
But I think that'd be great to keep on the table here, hopefully soon.
Great. Let's move on to the library. And I just drove by again yesterday. The windows that went in on the commercial street side, really, it's a whole new look for the building. I love it. But let's talk about we had a small group. Rachel and I joined Erin Kimsey when Amanda Wojcik made a site visit. And so we were inside the building, and it's definitely, there is definitely less wall space. It's pretty striking, but that big open area where the reference section used to be is just going to be really big and open, and with more light coming in from the windows that are now open. Amanda, we did, we had a pretty frank conversation with Amanda about feedback that had come up when the selection committee met by Zoom, giving her direction to add some additional color. And then she responded pretty well. I think she responded well to that. She was glad to be inside to get a feel for the inside of the building. And I'm not sure, and so Erin's been the point person for communicating with Amanda. I'm not sure that we have a date set yet for her to bring another revision of her proposal back to the committee, but I feel good about the process that's going on with that.
Yeah, and I'll just jump in. I don't know, had everyone heard that concerns had been raised after our meeting with Amanda on the 11th of January?
Concerns about what?
There was some concerns raised by members of the selection committee. In fact, the two that are on the library advisory board, the lab, apparently they didn't feel comfortable bringing the concerns up during the meeting with Amanda, and so they brought them forth later. And it was concerns over the colors in the piece. It was mostly white, the latest version that Amanda had shared with the group. And so there was an interest, not only by them, I think in the city's librarian as well, in seeing some additional color pulled back in. Amanda had originally had some colors in her initial design concept that she shared, and it kind of gravitated more towards a more monochromatic version. And so I think those concerns were raised, and so we decided to get everybody back together again. I think it was the following week. We pulled everybody from the selection committee back together and kind of had that discussion without Amanda. There was a few other things that were raised, I think, during that meeting about varying perceptions of the piece. Some people saw different images in the abstract that she shared. And then there was concern again raised about the Dewey Decimal System and the numbers, because there are numbers and symbols shown in the piece. Those were not as, I think, as deeply concerning to the group as just the lack of color. So I think it was good that the group got back together and just discussed openly. And then, yeah, Amanda came up and did a walkthrough. And so those concerns were shared with her the next day. So yeah, I think she did handle it well, and it sounds like she's moving forward to hopefully add some color. And I think the concerns that were raised in regard to Dewey, that's primarily our librarian, and she has a lot of information on his background apparently. But I think what was decided by the group is it's not necessarily apparent as you look at the piece that you're going to see references to Dewey, the Dewey Decimal System. So that was not as concerning as long as there's not really discussion about it in her final narrative or in the title of the piece, which it sounds like she's agreed to leave that out. So really, it sounds like she's moving forward to hopefully incorporate some more color. Yes, we need to schedule another check-in with her.
Any questions from folks before we move on to the rest of the library collection and work in process there?
Do you happen to have any images that you could share with us, perhaps by next meeting, just of what she's projecting?
Well, I have, the only images that I have at this point are the images that she presented that sparked the conversation about reintroducing some color. But I can share that. Please don't share them with anyone else because
Oh, no.
it's a work in process, but I can do that after this meeting.
That'd be great.
Let's talk a little bit about just next steps for moving the rest of the collection back to the library. We know that not all of it is going to fit. And we know that the staircase where the Tom Hardy birds were installed above the space does not exist anymore. The architects suggested a location for that piece in the smaller stairwell going up to the children's area. The librarians do not support that idea. They feel that both the librarian and the children's librarian feel that the birds are scary to children and some adults. And so I fear we may need to find even a different building for the birds. But Eileen, why don't you talk a little bit about what else is going on?
Questions for you, Heather. Have you gotten any response back from Hacker about placement of the birds?
I have not yet. No, I sent that request to her for the large pieces for that and the Setziol. I requested a list of locations with photos and any dimensions or discussion about lights for all artwork. And then I did ask her about the Betty LeDuc piece, which I know that's on our agenda as well. I have got some feedback on that, but that's it. She's working on the rest, she confirmed.
And what kind of feedback did she give you on the LeDuc piece?
So what she shared just this week, this is Laura from Hacker. The wall opposite to the bottom of the stairs at the plaza level is where they had been planning for the Betty LeDuc. They coordinated backing in that wall in order to support the piece.
Oh, good, because that is the site that Betty was really happy about. So that's nice to hear that. And so about birds, I don't quite understand the objection to it and have never in all the years that that's been hanging there ever heard anybody speak about that. So just putting that out there, I think, I do believe it could be moved to another building, but the amount of, it has to be connected up into the ceiling because it's heavy. And so wherever it's going to go, it's going to be a big project. So what's ideal about this is that all of that infrastructure underneath the ceiling is still open. And so this is the time that it should be placed. So I was wondering if it makes some sense to have Laura or another representative from Hacker come to a SPAC meeting and perhaps talk this through. the nebulousness of some people being afraid of it, you know, there's a point where I'm wondering how much credence we should give that. I do understand that there's been objections, but I'm wondering how much. So I don't know how everybody else would feel about that. Any comments about that?
Rachel?
I just wanted to also clarify at least what I heard when Sarah, the librarian, expressed concern about the piece. When Hacker was making suggestions about where it could possibly be reinstalled, because the stairwell where it did hang is no longer. And so they had suggested installing it in the stairwell that goes up to the children's area. And if you know the library, that is a much narrower space that kind of goes up and then turns and goes up again. So my feeling was that the children's librarian and the librarians were objecting to that placement because they felt that it was, you know, already children. I don't know how many children, but somebody at some point had said that it was imposing or frightening. And so they didn't want it in that particular stairwell, which I think we can all agree that that is not a good place for it anyways. It's a very kind of tight area, and I don't think it would be a suitable spot for it to begin with. So anyhow, I just wanted to provide a little bit more context of her response. And when I say her, I mean Sarah.
Rachel, are you talking about the existing stairwell that went up to the kids area?
Yes.
So you right next
Oh,
to the
goodness, no,
the
that would be way
elevator,
too small.
right, where the carved tree is and that, yeah. So
Oh my gosh.
that to me makes perfect sense that you wouldn't
Yeah.
want it in that stairwell. I don't know why they were thinking, I mean, that's the only stairwell that exists now where something like that could be hung. And unless you were to put it in the main room where now there's this big sort of very focal point type stairwell that comes in, and I think that's not a place for it either, because it would be in the sight lines for this new Amanda Wojcik piece and lots of other reasons. But anyhow, getting back to your point though, Eileen, about where it could go, there is another area that is double height that's in the southwest corner of the library over toward where the fiction center is, or fiction, not center, but stacks are. And so anyhow, when we go to Hacker and say, give us some other options in terms of a suitable height of the ceiling, et cetera. I mean, that is one place that we might consider hanging it. It's not a stairwell, but it's a double height ceiling and there's windows around it. I mean, it could be nice. I also think we should explore other places, maybe in the civic center where it could be hung. There's a lot of exterior corridors there that are sheltered from direct rain and that sort of thing. Also some stairwells that are similar to what used to exist in the library. So anyhow, I'm rambling now.
No, that's all really helpful, because I didn't quite grasp that we were talking about the children's stairwell as it existed. And yes, that would be way too narrow, way too confined for something like this. I really could see it hanging out in that big open area. There's no reason at all it has to be in a stairwell. So but I am a little concerned about waiting too much longer to engage Hacker. I know that you already have talked to them, Heather, but since I'm assuming that they are moving very fast forward, we don't want the ceiling to be closed up and then somehow have to re-engage that.
Well, the ceiling will not be closed up because they've exposed all that concrete, that grid at the top, which was covered up. That's now open. I was thinking that as Eileen and Rachel and Paula move forward, collaborating with the Library Advisory or the Library Foundation on the priority pieces to return to the library, that you might take on this conversation, especially around, just have a conversation about the scary issue. I do think this is not a favorite piece of Sarah Strahl's for whatever reason, but to just be, as SPAC is making the argument for, well, these are the most important city pieces in this building. And as the library says, well, these are the most important pieces that we own, that there's a conversation about the birds, the legacy, the history, the artist's background, and so on.
I went back to look at the agreement that we made, that the city made with the library concerning the artwork in the library. Mm-hmm. And there is one phrase in there, I don't have it in front of me right now, Heather, but there's a phrase in there that basically says that the librarian has the final word basically on artwork coming in. Mm-hmm. And so this is the first that I've heard that Sarah also has spoken up against it. Before this, Kate had said that the children's librarian, Karen, had mentioned it. And that was all that I knew. Karen, I know from a long time ago, so I could easily reach out to her personally to have more conversation about that issue. I have some concerns about the birds. There's no "the" in there, by the way, it's birds. Okay. And that is that the sculpture itself is very sharp. It's not completely finished and polished off in all respects. Some parts of it are and some parts are not. And so it actually could be quite dangerous if it was any lower. So we need to take that into account too when we're talking about maybe moving it to another location. It will have to be out of reach. Unfortunately, Tom Hardy, the other piece of Tom Hardy that we have was actually removed from the Civic Center because they were concerned about how sharp it was and that it was low to the ground. So that's also a consideration that we need to kind of keep in the front of our minds too, as we're talking about maybe placing it somewhere else. In which case, then we would need to be knowing where we were going to store the piece. And that's another kettle of worms. Mm-hmm. So I'll talk with Karen just to see what the objections really were about that as far as children. And again, like I said, and I'm not putting a lot of weight on my own experience, but I have never ever heard any comments like that until this, that people were afraid of birds. So, but that doesn't mean much just because I haven't heard it. So I'm glad, Rachel, that you said that there is another possible spot over by Fiction. And that sounds pretty hopeful that there may be another spot in that room for it. So anyway, the bottom line is we need to talk to Hacker and probably talk directly to the library about it. All right, and now beyond that, any response at all about replacing Setzel?
Not yet.
Yeah, no, I haven't. Laura did say she's going to get back to me this week. I don't know how much detail she'll have, but I know she understands. It seems like she understands that we need to get moving on these. So I will pass along whatever I hear back from her. And then if we need to, it sounds like you're going to reach out to the library directly. Thank you, Eileen. If we need to sit down, or if I need to sit down with her or Sarah or Kate or others, let me know, and we can get that started as well.
Yeah, I'm not going to talk to Sarah right away, but I will talk to Karen, because that was who Kate said originally
Right.
remarked about this. There is another piece that Sarah does not want to have replaced in the library, and that is the Nettie King Vine and Volcanic Rock. And that's a small enough piece, we can just pull that.
Okay.
But I think
Can
that
you
those
say
are
the
the only.
artist's name again, Eileen?
Nettie King, Netting. She was apparently a local artist. I don't know too much more about her. I've never heard her name in other situations before, but yeah. And that was a piece, and Sarah said that directly to us when Paula and I were in a meeting with them. Yeah, so that, like I say, that's easy enough. The birds, though, that's a big one. And
Yeah.
we do think, Paula and I do think, that it was site specific to the area that it was. So the home for it should be the library, but that's obviously that place no longer exists. And so if it can't be in the library, I'm not really sure where it's going to end up going. So
Okay.
that will be a problem. Other than that, mostly what I've been trying to do since the last meeting is just verify what is available to us, because a lot of pieces have been targeted for the library, and some of them are out on loan to other locations at this point. And so the last Heather's been working with me on that. And then the last one we still need to know is exactly which pieces are currently in the mayor's office. And other than that, everything else so far has been accounted for. Heather, there are a few things I was going to ask if you could do for us. And that is, there are several pieces that I don't really think are part of our collection. And I'm wondering, is there some way that we can check to see when these things were accessioned into the collection?
I can dig through, paperwork.
Yeah, I know. It's a gutty job to do that. But
Can you tell us
Steva
what some of those works are?
Minsky's 8-panel bookends, which has lived in West Salem's library up till now, and are going back. We checked into that. But that is listed as part of our collection. There are 2 small ones that were down in the teen area. One is Katie LaRue's Millipede and 2 Insects. They're craft articles, and they don't look like something that we would have accessioned into it. And so I don't think they're part of the collection. And then Deanna White's Family 1 and Family 2, again, I don't ever recall since we've been here that those were accessioned in. And perhaps they were before, but I just need to know. 2 other ones, there's a Benjamin Prewitt, Prewitt, called Panel Number 2, and Kim Robertson's Wicked Wicked Fisherman. All of these were in the teen area, and they seemed, Kate and I were working on that, trying to figure out who they belonged to. They seemed to have used money when the teen area was having a small remodel. But I don't think it's necessarily the city's money. So anyway, those are the ones, because not needing to know it as far as putting them back in, but needing to know just there's a lot of confusion over what is the foundation's work and what is our work on a couple of these issues. So these pieces. So between the two collections, there are, let me see. Okay, as far as wall work, there are 27 to 29 possible pieces going back up. And that is just SPAC. For the foundation, there's about 48 pieces. Out of those, 17 roughly are large scale. And so we're talking about 17 places that we need to find for oversized wall work. And that is why it's so important that we need to have communication directly with Hacker about this, because this isn't usually the way somebody installs a show, by kind of just guessing what the wall sizes are. You go in and you look at it and you see it, but that's not possible. So we need that communication to be, maybe coming to a meeting or perhaps even meet separately. Whichever way works best for you, Heather.
I would also suggest that Aaron can facilitate a walkthrough of the building, and I would really suggest doing that. It's going to be tough to move that amount of work back into the building, in my opinion.
We won't necessarily put it all back in.
Yeah.
And that was why I was also trying to iron out where the other pieces are, because a few of those pieces are actually on loan out. And Heather and I were talking about perhaps having a storage area down in the former police area for SPAC work. And I'm going to talk to Kate about asking, we talked about this once before with her, but that was a long time ago, and I'll remind her that we discussed possibly having a storage area within the library for foundation work. So that way we don't have to get everything back up on the walls, which we probably won't be able to do anyway.
Yeah.
That's really not an awful lot of work, by the way. So, and most of that is medium-sized to small. And so we may not get every large scale piece up. So that's the main thing. I wouldn't mind waiting a little bit longer to go in and see the space, because part of what we're looking for is how it interacts with other areas around it. And so a little bit more finish on that would actually help. So
I think if we can get, we do need to get Hacker to give us some available spaces and dimensions so that we can hone the list, because we need to get that to somebody who will do the installation so that they can give us an estimate for what that cost would be and get on their schedule, because it's February and time is ticking. I mean, it's more complicated than just making a list and then putting it into the library. So it really is important for Hacker to start giving us some of this information so that we can create a list, because we're kind of stuck until we have that.
yeah.
Okay, so I will definitely forward again. I do hope to hear something back from Laura this and I'll forward what I get on to you guys. It sounds like what might need to happen and what might be helpful is once we have that information, to also just kind of sit down and just go ahead and schedule some kind of meeting with Hacker, maybe bring Kate in, maybe Sarah, just to kind of start having those discussions and talk a bit more about what the space is going to look like.
One of the other things too, Heather, is the desire to wait just a little is, sure. I want to see the colors. what's happening with that. And even if Hacker has a projected image, just a drawing or something, that would be helpful.
Right.
And in fact, they may have that. They may have that already just easily. They could just email those to us.
They do, and they should be able to share that because all of their finishes have already been selected. The carpet,
Okay, great.
the upholstery, all paint, the signage, all of that. And so that shouldn't be an issue.
That would be great. That would be very helpful to have that because that too helps. We can do some of this kind of thinking ahead of time before we actually have to go in and see it. And so the other thing then is building on what Rachel was saying. Jonathan has recommended someone who works at the Halley Ford, and his name is Silas. Is it Cook? Rachel? Yeah, Silas Cook. And I would like to talk to him now, but I don't really know if that's protocol. So can you guide me on that? Heather and Chris?
I think
Hello?
it would be appropriate to talk to Silas, A, to find out if he's even available, and, B, whether he would be interested. He probably, obviously, I would think the city would put out a scope of work once we know what the lay of the land is, and then bid the job. There aren't that many people who have the experience. And interestingly, Silas is the partner of Deb Stoner, who was one of the finalists for not the partner, just friend.
Yeah, no, they're not wrong person. This is he knows her, but he's not partner.
Yeah, anyway, they're friends. Yeah, I don't know enough about the city's procurement rules, but finding out if he would even be interested and free, given the time frame, I think would be just a good idea.
Yeah, and we're not talking about a lot of work for him as far as because Rachel and Paula and I will decide the placement. And so basically we're just talking about putting them up on the wall.
Yeah, but don't you think that's going to take a few days?
Could be, but it won't be, it's not quite the same level of work that if he was doing the entire installation by himself. I mean, we'll be doing the tags, we'll be doing all those things that do take an awful lot of time. So let's see, anything else? Sculptures, there is one outdoor sculpture and all the rest are indoors, but we don't have a lot of those. Some of them are permanently fixed, like the Kristen Coons and the Gerd glasswork. Those don't change. So there's only 2 pedestal pieces. There is the Setzel freestanding screen. There's birds floating from the ceiling, and 3 wall works, and that's it. So not too bad on that one. Okay, so that's pretty much it. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
And I'm assuming that we've taken a lot of time this morning talking about kind of this level of detail, but I'm hoping that that your subcommittee can manage some of this stuff outside of our regular meetings.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely fine. And I've been talking with Rachel and I've been talking with Paula. So
Yeah.
we are doing that. And of course, I've been talking with Heather quite a bit. She's been doing a lot of legwork for us.
Perfect.
So, but it's unfortunately though, Chris, there are some things that we actually have to bring up in the meeting just to have other ideas about it. So,
Sure, absolutely.
okay.
I had one comment just briefly, just in hearing all the dialogue around Hacker in the library, people's opinions around what art, and then the subcommittee, of course, I trust they're doing the right stuff. I just wanted to throw out there that makes me think a little bit, though, aesthetically, from Hacker's point of view. I'm not speaking for anybody, but we've seen the renderings early on of how open and airy and much more modern feeling the library interior is going to be. And I would just, maybe it's stating the obvious. Sometimes I think maybe less is more too. The idea I'm thinking of is, listen, maybe the idea is not to try to fill it, make it feel like it's full. I'm not saying that we're going to place too much art, but I would just suggest that there could be opinions that less is more, and you could rotate things around to keep it the aesthetic of what Hacker is going for, to keep it that open, airy, and it's like too much or aesthetic of certain art pieces placed in the wrong area. Not saying that someone would do that intentionally, but there might be some sensitivity to less is more and the aesthetic that they're going for.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Michael,
Yeah,
and that is our guiding principle.
Yeah.
Less is more.
You know what I mean? Because not everything will fit the same way originally, like the birds, which to me that's just the way it goes sometimes. It's like, it is an improvement. This project is a massive improvement. Aesthetically, I think it's just brilliant. So, sometimes you're like, how can we fit this in? It's like, well, maybe the idea, again, I thought of the larger pieces of rotating them. There could be a schedule that says, these larger pieces, so that we don't put too many up and it starts to feel like we're filling it, that we could have a rotation plan.
Yeah, actually, that was one thing that I was really pushing for in one of the meetings with Kate. It's a little, it's the foundation and the librarians, they have their own opinions too. And a lot of upheaval, redoing the artwork is not necessarily something that they want. So they're thinking more in terms of more permanent locations for quite a few of these pieces, and that's fine. But yes, I absolutely agree with you, and everybody on the subcommittee feels that too, that less is more, and especially in this particular building. So that's why we're waiting to think in terms of what the colors are and roughly what the space will end up looking like before we get too into the weeds about what's going where.
Okay, are we finished with the library for this morning? Let's go back. We skipped over the convention center. And I sadly have to report that Richard Thompson passed away.
He didn't, Chris. No, I just found this out this morning, actually. I think that was not the case.
Really? Someone contacted me from New Mexico. Well, we'll take it offline.
Okay, yeah, I don't think he has.
Okay. The Richard Thompson piece is at the convention center. The Rob Bibler piece that the Oregon Artist Series Foundation is gifting to the convention center is being framed and will be delivered back to Salem next week. The Oregon Artist Series Foundation, which advises the convention center about work there, is going to take a look at the work that's installed on the first floor of the convention center and possibly move some work around to give a better location for the Thompson and the Bibler. There were two large panels that were kind of information panels regarding the outdoor sculpture that have been dismantled and stored, which frees up some wall space. But there's definitely opportunity to move some work around there, to give just a better location. The Thompson piece is quite striking, so is the Bibler. So that's really all I know.
Did the gallery of photos on the second floor, is that remaining? or there was discussion before that was going to turn into something else, or is that
Yeah,
opened up?
There are two series of photographs on the second floor. One is a series by Kelly.
Yeah.
The architectural details, that work is still there. And then the work that was back towards the elevator, the photographs from Cuba that Rich Harcourt and Mary Lou did, those have been removed. The wall's been repaired. And there is a plan to use that space for rotating work, either individual shows or some small group shows. That's a work in progress. The
Great.
convention center remains closed, so although things could be changing on that front pretty quickly, I guess. But there will definitely be opportunity to promote the new paintings that are going in once the building opens. There's kind of a skeleton crew working right now, maybe three people.
Yeah, and so that was a question I'd had. I know we do want to do a media release of sorts at some point, whether or not it's combined. It might be combined for the two pieces, right? We've discussed that. I don't know that anybody knows when we want to do that, but we'll just kind of, I guess, keep that kind of placeholder there. The story that you did, the information that you provided, what was that? That was over a month ago for the SCC blog. I just wanted to share that I did see that X Gallery up in Portland, who we have our artwork stored with presently. They've completely updated their website. It's very cool. And she has links to different kind of arts and blogs. And she had a link to that information about Richard Thompson, which I thought was very cool. To see.
Yeah, I mean, it's an opportunity I think the Thompson purchase is definitely an opportunity for an Oregon Arts Watch feature. They have a writer in McMinnville who covers Yamhill County. And I do think Wendy Brokaw would definitely pick it up. I didn't see the blog post, so I'll take a look at that.
I should share that. Let me share that out after the meeting today. Link to
Okay, perfect. Well, let's move down to Betty LeDuc. I'm glad to hear that we can confirm a space with her. It seems like I could definitely reach out, send her another letter, just saying work's proceeding. The architects have identified a place. It is, on the lower level adjacent to the Peace Plaza, as you suggested, Betty. And then see if we can get her to sign off on a gift, and then figure out, later this spring, how to get the work up from Ashland.
Before we do that, can we absolutely confirm that is the space that's still available, Heather?
that was what I provided this morning from Laura. That's what they're assuming.
Okay.
They've set aside for that piece.
Okay, great.
I don't know. I wonder, it sounds like she might be hard to reach via phone, but I wonder if it might be good, just given the time frame where we're at. We've sent a couple letters, and granted, we didn't ask for a return response in those, but I wonder if we want to try to give her a quick call and just, it sounds like that was the way a lot of communication, how it started. Eileen, I think you had conversations with her.
Originally I wrote her a letter.
Okay.
But I also, when I was having to reach her a lot, I said, please just check your phone.
Okay.
Because we're going to be talking back and forth. I mean, she's very eccentric in some ways. And so it's just, but she was always very responsive when she knew that I wanted to get a hold of her. Yeah.
And just for the record, it is trees with a plural of life. I was confused. I kept referring to it as tree of life, but there are 3 trees, so.
Yes, and we had called it tree of life in the letter, I noticed after the fact, so
Yeah, right.
that caused confusion.
Okay, let's move on to murals.
Okay, so I had sent the notes out to, I think, everybody in this group. We had I think it was a good discussion to kind of regroup and restart, talking about where we want to go with murals in Salem. We probably could flesh out a bit more kind of the big picture goals of what it is we want. Something that was helpful to me is I guess I've struggled, and I've had staff that continue to ask me, we do have, a condition now that murals are allowed, but they do need to be accepted into the collection. And so, there's a couple other entities we learned from Beaverton and Hillsborough, I believe it was, that's how they go about theirs, is they're accepted temporarily. So it was helpful to me to kind of have that discussion again and really clarify that it is important to this group. And I think I understand the reasons. There's a number of reasons why we really do want to go in a different direction and have murals approved through a separate process, that they need not be part of the collection. So that consumed a large portion of the conversation that we've had, and I apologize for kind of derailing it, but that helps me figure out kind of the next steps again, and it gives me information that I can take back to legal and our planners. And so that's not going to be a quick fix, because that's going to potentially impact other code beyond the art code, chapter 15. That will require some kind of adjustments, I think, ultimately in chapter 900, the sign code, because they only presently allow public art murals, which are in our collection. So we can navigate through that, but it's not going to happen right away. So the next step, I think, that we have decided, it was Eileen, think you suggested that we reach out to Portland and take a look at their permit program that they have in place, Title IV murals. And I've just started looking at their website again and all the information. It's really a simple permit process where content is not part of the discussion. So that would satisfy kind of some of the legal concerns that have been raised. So I did reach out. She gave contact information. I finally gotten in contact with Kristen Cooper, City of Portland planner, and she's willing to sit down and chat about the program. And I also heard back from Tiffany Conklin of the Portland Street Art Alliance, and she's very happy to sit down and discuss. It sounds like they've been doing that actually with others. Oregon City and Vernonia had been asking questions recently about their program as well. So I shared that I would let you all know that I've heard from them and kind of get a timeline. I think what I need to do is review and spend some time understanding myself, the details of what they have. But in the meantime, we can look to schedule something. I think it would be good to sit down and just have a discussion and maybe include our attorney, planning staff if they'd like to be involved as well.
That sounds good. I appreciate all the legwork and the connections from Eileen and all the work that you're doing, Heather.
Thank you.
On this topic, we had a really good conference call the other day. On this topic, the Portland Winter Light Festival went to a 2-weekend more spread out event, but several of their installations were digital projection, either on the side of Pioneer Place and at the Portland Art Museum. And I'll share some images from what they did. The work at the Art Museum, which was done by Portland artists, was really quite beautiful and striking. And it's the kind of thing that might be appealing to a place like the Rivers condominiums, that wouldn't require a painted mural, and could be something that changes and was more kind of dynamic. Anyway, I'll share some images. They're really pretty amazing.
In terms of timeline, sorry to jump in.
No, go ahead.
I did want to clarify with this group. It sounds like we might be having some meetings coming up to talk about the library collection. Do we want to also try to schedule something into February, early March? Folks up north were asking when we might want to have that discussion with them. So I bring that to you today, I guess.
That sounds good.
Okay.
If we could do early March, I think
Early March.
that would be so much easier.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Well, I'll probably just set up a doodle as I usually do. I'll let them know that we're looking at that time frame, and then we'll just kind of figure out the next steps forward and regroup on that. So thank you.
Let's talk about kind of our work plan and timeline draft that Heather circulated. We've got a lot going on.
Yes, we do. Let me see, if okay, let me try to share my screen again. I have issues. Here it is. All right, can folks see that?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So basically what I did for this, it's hopefully not too much color. It's a little loud, I guess, this morning. I just took the list that, we had drafted before the last meeting that Chris helped me pull together. I didn't include every single task in this, and it's not letting me scroll through. Oops, what did I do? But I tried to pull together what I thought was the most important 3 or 4 tasks kind of under each big project that we've got going, the library, the council doors, and tried to somehow clarify visually, which helps me, how much time we have left before things really need to fall into place. For example, the library, we really have, we're in February now, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 5 meetings, 5 usual monthly meetings before the library is going to be open and to the public. Council doors, it's kind of the same thing. We were told that I need to have a plan for those by the end of summer. And then just kind of tried to do the same for the others. Those two, the library and the council doors, I think we're going to want to get some promotion information out about the convention center soon. Those are really the top deadlines that we have. And then I've thrown in the others down as well. So it's not letting me add or manipulate this spreadsheet today, but if you guys have ideas on any timelines that we want to try to pull in for the Eco Earth or the mural program, which again is going to take some time, or art and parks, let me know and I can update this, and we'll just kind of maybe check in every month. Did anybody have questions or concerns with the way the timeline is looking at present? No. Do we see an interest in, I guess, kind of initiating some of the Eco Earth items? We are kind of moving forward on the murals. I think we can clarify a bit more the program goals and intent, and maybe we can do that as a follow-up to our meeting with Portland. So that's kind of on the books, and it looks like that would be March. And then from there, we can initiate stakeholders meetings if we want to bring folks in. Do we want to try to set any timeline to the Eco Earth at this point?
Heather, can you adjust your screen so we can see the whole document? I'm seeing a lot of header type stuff at the top. Is anyone else can anyone else see this document full screen?
No.
It ends to me on my screen with line 12. So if we could see the whole thing, it'd be helpful.
All right, why isn't it letting me?
Can you just scroll down or up?
So I'm scrolling and you're not seeing that?
No,
Okay, shoot.
I didn't print this document out. That's why I just need to see the bottom.
I think if you stop sharing and reshare, it might.
Seems like the Eco Earth stuff is pretty complicated.
There you go.
So I'm not sure what you're seeing now.
I'm seeing that, oh, there you go. It's moving
Okay.
now. That's
Okay.
better.
Working now.
Do I need to zoom in a bit?
Oops,
No, that's perfect.
no. It's good.
So,
So what are the possibilities of, okay, you know, the project that's happening with Pringle Creek and the underpass joining to Riverfront Park and all of that? Is there any opportunity there to fold in some of this eco-earth fall renovations with that project?
I had wondered that as well, and I can certainly reach out to staff to ask. What I've seen right now, it's, I think, and I don't remember exactly the numbers, it was estimated that that's going to be several $1,000,000. And I know staff are in the process of seeking a grant, some grant funding for that. It's not certain that would be accepted. And then if not, then we'll reapply again for other grants or reapply again next year. I think there are some funds available for that because it's in the urban renewal district down there. But I can ask. I had, you know, it comes right out that I think we've seen the drawings. The new pathway is going to come out, you know, along the river there, right next to the eco-earth. So that would be ideal if possible.
Yeah, it's almost like an anchor on that end. Also, I had a quick question. You mentioned earlier parks, art in the parks as part of this planning. I think that there's a new park that's going in on D Street and 25th
Is that near the hospital?
as part of that development near the new housing development there on the Oregon State Hospital adjacent grounds. They've started building all of these apartments and multifamily housing units. And my understanding is that there is also a park that is planned for that area. Do you
I
know
haven't
anything
looked up
about?
on that myself, but I do recall seeing something about it, so I can ask.
Okay.
Did you have thoughts on that?
Well, I'm just thinking if a park is being developed sort of from the ground up, right now there is it's basically an open field with nothing. I mean, it has a baseball diamond, I think, at one end of it, and then the rest of it is just wide open. So I would be interested to know what the actual plans are for that site, and then whether there's an opportunity for artwork to be incorporated in some way, or with the design. You know, it's sort of what we've been talking about. How do we make art integral to this process? And if they're planning something from the ground up, this seems like an opportunity to kind of test that and see if there's a way to make it happen.
I think that's a great idea. That's why I suggested attending a SPRAB meeting to start to connect with that group. And, you know, Patricia in the city's parks department seems very, you know, open to ideas.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, that was my impression as well. So if we could reach out and maybe get some more information about where they are in the planning of that. And it's a part of Salem that I mean, there isn't any public art in that area, in this area. So I think
well, there is the Cremains Memorial.
Well,
Apart
right.
from that, though,
yeah, no, and this is further north from there. It's not on the same side of, it's on the other side of Center Street. It's up
Yeah.
by D Street. So
There's actually some pretty amazing art in the state hospital, the new part of it. It's hard to get into that building. I've only been in once, and I didn't get to go into the inner courtyards, but there are some really amazing pieces. I think that's a great idea, Rachel. I think we should find out more and, you know, and speak up as SPAC.
So I can do that. That's on me. I'll see what I can learn about where we're at in the process, what the details are, and how we could incorporate some suggestions for that. Do we want to try to, I know, so we've brought up several times meeting with SPRAB. They've expressed interest, I know, on the side, in meeting to discuss art and parks. Is this something that you'd like to maybe have as a topic at our next monthly meeting, or do we want to kind of carve out separate meetings with a couple folks on the side to get the conversation going?
Probably both.
Both.
I mean, I'm sure SPRAB has a monthly meeting like this one that someone could observe, or we could ask to be a guest, or, you know, find out if they're going to be speaking about this new potential park.
Yeah. Okay, let me reach out to staff and see if they have any thoughts or ideas, and we'll see what we can do to get it rolling, just to get the discussion going. I think thank you. I think we're looking at both kind of temporary installations as well as maybe whatever options, and that includes funding, and I don't know how that works, but for more permanent installations as well.
Yes, both.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, I'll get that conversation going. So that's one of our tasks. So we'll get started on that March. You had also suggested, and that's probably a good idea, Chris, that we start looking at parks, public art and parks best practices. So I can kind of see if I can start looking at that as well and see what others are doing. I know you guys have brought up over the years, Tualatin, I think, area, their parks, and I think some other examples that would be easy places to kind of start.
Hillsborough and the city of Portland also.
Thank you. Okay, so any movement, do we think, on Eco Earth yet, or I'll look into any potential other funding options? Maybe that's enough for now, given everything else that's going.
I think it would be good to talk to Mary Heintzman about how much information they have from the initial ball work with the data files of all the supporters and donors. She was going to check when we were down there the morning of the conservators visit. She said she was going to see in what shape the records were. Like, it could be an old software that doesn't talk to anything now, but that would be good to figure out. And it sounds like their 501c3 is current with the Secretary of State, you know, in terms of having a vessel that could apply for grants and where money could go. Yeah.
Okay, I'll reach out to Mary as well. And then council doors, I know, Rachel, you sent a ton of information. Thank you. After our last meeting, I just need to dive in and start reviewing that. And again, I'd mentioned our files in the office. So I need to get on that, because I don't know, and I need to verify with SHPO for sure what they're hoping to see in the end product. It was a bit ambiguous. So I need to get on that on my end, and then maybe I can have some updates in March.
You know, another way to get some of that work done would be, especially as the doors are slated to be moved. Have they actually been moved yet?
Yeah, they're down on the first floor in the old evidence room.
Oh, okay.
Please.
I saw them down Liberty a week or so ago. They were wheeling them on dollies on the sidewalk right across from my office. I was like, oh, there's the doors.
Oh, wow. That would have been a good picture. But, you know, Kylie Pine from Willamette Heritage writes a weekly column for the Statesman that runs on the weekend. You know, we could ask her to something about how the doors came to be, because the architect's archive is at Willamette Heritage.
Did we decide, I think you had been in contact with her, Chris, if she's on furlough or if sounds like she's responding, she's working remotely?
Yeah, she didn't reply, but that was a few months ago. I think the museums should be able to open soon with some of this reopening stuff. I don't know, I could reach out to her again. But as long as the material is in her own archive, it seems like it would be a reasonable, a suggestion. She's very easy to work with. And there would be a current, connection with the fact that the doors are being replaced. Not that anybody goes to City Hall to go to a city council meeting right now because it's all virtual.
Okay, well, I've got a list for next month. In terms of that timeline, anything else that was missed or that we need to add or we should try to hit on soon?
I will say, going back up to the actions for the library, if there is going to be some documentation of the art collection, you should start thinking about that sooner rather than later, because it takes a while to produce stuff like that.
Sure.
And figuring out, is this print or digital or whatever. I did go to the Multnomah Library website and I expected to find something regarding the artwork at the Central Library, and there is no separate call out for the artwork, which surprised me. So I have been kind of looking for some best practices. I haven't found any yet.
Okay.
Just FYI.
I think maybe moving in that direction, verifying which pieces are actually SPAC and which ones are foundation is pretty integral to that.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, so we have an action item this morning, which is the acceptance of Equitas, the Blessing Hancock piece, into the city's collection. And we started off the meeting. Heather gave us an update about the lighting, which has been repaired and is working, and everybody knows how the pieces are supposed to interconnect so that if there's a problem, it should be resolved. So I would entertain a motion to accept, unless there's any further discussion about that. So I would entertain a motion to accept Equitas by Blessing Hancock into the City of Salem Public Art Collection.
I move that we accept Equitas by Blessing Hancock into the Salem Public Art Collection happily.
Is there a second?
I second that motion.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 All right. Any opposed? Doesn't sound like it. All right. Equitas has been accessioned into the public art collection. Let's move into commissioner comments. And I wanted to start off briefly by saying that Bill Rhodes, who is someone in Bend who often helps artists place their work in various collections, approached me about a very large Bill Hoppy painting that might be available for donation. And I sent an image of it out to all of you last night. And just want to have maybe a brief discussion about whether any of you feel that this work should be considered, as a potential gift to the city of Salem. It's very large. I've never seen it in person. Bill Hoppy had taught at the Central Oregon Community College for many years. Anyway, any reactions to what I shared last night?
I went online and looked at his work too. And he's got lovely, lovely work, very subtle. I just, my biggest question is, where would we put it?
There is no place to put it.
I'm afraid not.
Anybody have any other reactions?
Does he have any sort of Salem area connection at all?
No, not really. It wouldn't surprise me if he had a piece at the Highly Ford. Do you happen to know, Rachel?
They have one piece.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't think it's suitable for the city collection. So I would come down in favor of not taking it.
Yeah, there are other Bill Hoppy works that I like better than this particular one. I just wanted to be able to go back to Bill and say, thanks for thinking of us. We are kind of bursting at the seams right now with changes at the library. And I was kind of hoping that Paula might be on the call this morning because, a college might well be interested. So anyway, all right. Well, thank you for at least letting me bring it to the meeting this morning.
Chris, if there was anything that was a smaller piece that they would consider. I know that's pretty, but just in your own head, just kind of keep that thought if they are offering.
Yeah, I know Bill Rhodes spoke with Jonathan, he and Roger Hall, and I think it's often difficult for artists who may create a very large work for a show to be able to place that work in with an institution or a museum because it's so hard to store stuff, and it may not have a great market given where we are right now. Any other commissioner comments? Were you going to talk a little bit, Michael, about the Rotary Amphitheater?
I wasn't planning. It might be a little premature.
Okay.
I was going to make a comment about the piece you brought. I wasn't super intrigued by it, just aesthetically, I thought. And then it was a great point was made of like connection to Salem or a reason for placing it. So anyway, that my 2 cents. I mean, he's got some cool work for sure, but this piece I was like, given its size and needing a good home, it did make me want to, jump to it to try to figure something out. It just seemed to kind of middle of the road for me. So I can come back on the Rotary piece. We're commissioning some work out of Portland currently that won't be finished till the end of March. There's quite a bit of fabrication details. Basically it's a donor wall. And so it's moving kind of slow. There's still quite a bit of time, and we're kind of stuck in a period of materials and finishes for the metal. It's all to be determined, aluminum, stainless steel, etc. So there's a lot of things in the background that are moving parts, but I've been donating time to design the donor wall, and has some cool things going. I just wanted to share to the group regarding it being around the original artwork that's being created, that it is paying homage to the native Kalapuya tribe, and we're working with Grand Ronde, David Harrelson over there. So it's some good stuff, and it's something I'll come back to when we get a little bit further along, just to share kind of what's going on there.
Where will that be placed?
It's under the canopy of the main structure. There's a big open cement wall adjacent to the Rotary logo that's half up the wall and half on the ground in metal. So it's a big 3-panel piece. It's basically, yeah, donor sponsor names, and then interpretive work, basically informing the architecture design inspiration with CB2, as well as paying homage to Jerry Frank and Rotary. So it's cool to be part of it.
I think that's really great that they're doing something that references the Kalapuya tribe, because that actually was a village site right down there.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I did quite a bit of, since I've moved to Salem, I've done more research than I ever did in Portland on this kind of stuff. So it's kind of fun. We know it's all around us, but it's kind of cool because the structure of the canopy inspiration is based on a Kalapuya woven basket that they would use to gather all the native plants and whatnot. It goes pretty deep. So it's the main visual of this piece is a calendar. So it's an annual calendar that shows you at what time of year they harvested different elements of, you know, both animal and vegetation, and some of the tools. So it's really a way to ground the design of the canopy and the architecture in the context of the native people. So, and then it's cool when you see Grand Ron get involved, because you know, it's kind of a treat, kind of peeking behind the curtain. I've had some great conversations and getting some exposure to some cool stuff, to make sure that it's all validated, 100% validated through Grand Ron. And, you know, we're down to the like making choices of better choices, because we can't include everything, but this sort of seasonal round calendar does exist for other, at least 1 or 2 other parts of Oregon. And each one is different because every area has its own things. And so stay tuned on that, and I'll be sharing that. So
Great.
Really great.
I wonder who is programming that space for with content, you know, the amphitheater itself. Like, will people just be able to book it for a promoter?
Yeah, I wonder the same thing of like how it's going to feel when it does get going and outdoor entertainment. And I know I certainly have some clients that, you know, do events and things, and so everyone's waiting to see kind of how it activates and how it functions, you know, as well as events and scale. So yeah, it's to be determined.
Well, I did hear that the Rotary achieved its fundraising goal of 4 million, which I think is great. So it's paid for. And I'm excited to see the design. I mean, I've seen the design. I'm excited to see it built. So, okay. Any other commissioner comments?
I don't know if everybody know, but James Kirk passed away a couple of weeks ago. For those of you,
I did hear that.
Yeah, for those of you who might not know, James Kirk was a longtime artist, 40 years, more than that, and teacher in the area between OSU and Western Oregon, going all the way back to OCE, when it was OCE. So that for the local community, that's quite a loss.
Fabulous large-scale watercolor portraits, just really distinctive style. And he was just such a beloved mentor for students and people involved in arts education.
Yeah, very generous man, very
Very.
generous with any thought that, you know, that artists sometimes have that they kind of don't want to share their secrets. That was not Kirk ever.
Mhm.
He
Yeah.
shared everything.
Yeah. Thank you for mentioning that, Eileen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, any other comments for the good of the order? All right, well, we've got a lot on our plate. Thank you all. And thank you, Heather. And stay in touch. Stay safe.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Okay, bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.